So in order to make this creepy figure, there are some bits. Here is some Seraphon bits for the dress and the garments that she has on. There's also the lid of a glue. This is the cap of some crazy glue right here. This cap right here is what makes the hat. Okay, and I added some bits to it in order to give it, a hat-like uh, shape. And it's basically a very Victorian kind of dress, right? She has some chains here. Now, the Madam of Witchblight begins like this. Okay, and she is sort of undead-like. She has, a skeletal body, the skull-like head. This is known as a death fairy. I will talk about death fairies in another, when Julie and I talk about our fairies. But basically, this is it. This is the lid of a Tropicana orange juice bottle. And I love using these to make pillars. So I use this to make her dress. And then here's the wire down below. And the wire connects to the skeleton body and the little skull there, okay? So that gave me distance from the dress all the way up, okay? Okay. And basically, I love saving my Halloween. These are my Halloween necklaces and things that I buy at the dollar store. And I save them. I buy a bunch of them during Halloween and save them so I can make crafts throughout the year. Okay, so that's what this is all about. So this all gets covered. Now, once this is glued, I put a little hot glue, wrap it around in plastic bag, and then burn it. And burn that bag and burn the plastic a little bit. And it gives it a little bit of shape and whatnot. Then I take my Dremel and I polish everything. Now, for the bottom, to eliminate some of the rigidity, I take my soldering iron and melt away the edges. So very carefully, just kind of do this. Okay, and sometimes I'll go up. Okay, and I just do that. And that goes all around the dress, and it gives it a much more, it takes away some of that rigidity, right? And that's basically what you see there. But again, it gives it a bit of that Victorian, kind of a very Victorian kind of, almost like a chaos look. I don't know. It's very bizarre, right? Her wings are plastic, and then some various bony parts. So basically, that's how she started. Then I added some cotton down there, and I burned it up, and that's her smoky kind of part that she has under the dress. All right, so now let's just do a little spriggan, so that I can show how I made the spriggan. I take my pipe cleaner and I just bend it in half if I can. Try to make it in half, okay? It's not perfectly the same size, but then I go ahead and twist it and leave an end there. That's going to be my head. And later, I'm going to swell that up. And I twist it. I don't twist it very, very much, okay? Because they're supposed to be smaller. These are small warriors. So once I have this going on, I go down here and twist this up. And then basically just, because when you burn these things, they get very skinny. Okay, so I want to give it a little bit of girth. Okay, and that's going to create one of my arms. So basically a humanoid shape. And on some of them, as you can see with this one, I add I widen the legs and add some like little roots and things like that, okay? And I don't do that to all of them. I do that to some of them, they're all a little bit different, okay? So let's just finish here. And I'm going to add another little piece of wire for the other arm. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so I'm gonna make my other arm, and I kind of just fold it in, and we want to give that a little bit of length. There we go. Because by the time you finish twisting and everything, and I use weapon bits for this. I use little plastic bits that I have left over. And I'm gonna do the other arm. Now for the other arm, I'm gonna leave that little kind of twig-like thing going on there. Okay, so now we're gonna cut this and go on to the next step. All right, so I'm gonna cut. I actually am adding another little finger here, another little twig. So make sure they're separated. And again, I don't add 5 fingers. I usually add 2 or 3, you know. These are bizarre creatures. And then I leave a little bit in the back so it could represent like a twig coming out, okay? So it's almost ready for burning. All right, so I have a nice little twig back there, and I'm going to widen the head a bit. That's the nice thing about these pipe cleaners, is that you can twist them, you can bend them, you can do whatever you want with them. Okay, and just kind of widen that. The head is very vague. Okay, so just kind of widen it a bit. And then we're going to do a little bit of burning. The fuel is wasting on this one, but it still works. Notice how it becomes nice and skinny, everything. Okay, and more twig-like once you give it the burning effect. Okay. Okay. And over here just needs a little bit, and that really tightens it up. And then we can kind of shape him a little bit, you know, give him a little bit of pose. And we're going to widen up the legs a little bit more, and then put on one of his weapons. And I'm going to... Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, so now that he's somewhat posed, let's put the weapon on his arm. Okay, so I insert the weapon. I chose this weapon and basically just twist. Cover up the little wrist and hand or whatever that the original weapon had. And then just kind of twist it in. Alright, and just pose him up a bit. And there you go. He has a cool looking weapon. And yeah, that's it. So now he just needs a base. All right, and then I add him to the base, and I'll decorate that base later. And basically a great way to add some scratch-built units to a Forces of Nature army, okay? And I can repose that any way I want. And there he is. He can join his comrades. And now the spriggan sorceress, or whatever she is, she has a little unit to protect her. Okay, but these are spriggan warriors that could also be taken alone as twig people. All right, by the way, I'm just going to show real quick. This is how I started the female wizard. Okay, and basically just do this little triangular section. This is going to be the chest area, the thorax, and then the little head, I'm going to pinch it. Okay, and then later I make the head a little bit wider. So I take my pipe cleaners and just wrap them around, get the girth of the body here a little higher, and then one of the arms is already started, and I go back. And basically, I do like a little bell-like structure down here, okay, a little triangular structure. And then I'll take varying lengths of pipe cleaner and start to go the other way to make that dress a little thicker, okay, like that. Okay, I add these bits here, these roots. That gives it a lot of character, and that I use a little hot glue. And she has her staff, which is a plastic bit. Okay, and the cool thing about these figures, they are posable. So you can, I can pose them a little bit if I don't like their original pose. I can repose them, so that's cool. And now to paint the Spriggan warriors. I'm using apple barrel paint, which is cheap paint from Walmart or any dollar store or anything like that. It's very cheap. I find this to be very much sufficient for these kinds of figures. So I use black, and I also use Art Skills brown. It's a very nice, rich brown. For a cheap paint, it's not bad for this kind of work. And I'm going to give my critter a coat of black, sorry. So I'm going to start with black. And one important thing I do is I dip my black paint into water. I find that to paint these pipe cleaner figures, watered down paint is the best, and kind of soak it in. It soaks in the paint and it just takes it on a lot better. Better even than spray painting. Spray painting is very thick paint usually. So I find that this sticks a lot better, this wet paint. Kind of soak the... So before he even dries, I go ahead and I add a little bit of the brown mixed with a little bit of water and do like a little bit of blending here and there just to give it a little hint of brown so it's not all black. Okay, and I usually do this around the head so the head stands out a little bit more. Yeah, and just kind of mix it in there. Let it mix a little bit. This is more like painting a craft or a terrain piece. It's not, this is not the way you paint your miniatures, of course. So once I've done my light gray, I go back and highlight some areas with some tan, especially the areas around the roots and the tips of branches. And just keep doing that for all of them. And then let it dry. Once it dries, things blend in a little bit more. Because the final stage is going to be to decorate with a little bit of flocking powder and some leaves. Okay, and in order, while things dry, while all the dry brushing dries, you can see all the texture of the pipe cleaner. I then begin to apply some earth texture paste from Vallejo. This has become my favorite basing material as of late. And I'll also use homemade flocking powder with this. And I'm going to put some flocking powder on the bodies of the spriggans. So once they're painted, I come to my craft bench and then add a little bit of homemade flocking powder to the bases and to some areas of the tree creatures, the spriggans, and basically I just use like the branches on the head. Sometimes I'll put a little bit on the head itself to simulate like hair. Okay, since these creatures are spirits whose bodies are made completely of trees. And here is the wizard And I think she looks good, and they're kind of creepy without, actual faces. I think they look much better like that, because they're kind of creepy. They have no faces, but yet they function as if they had, a face with eyes and mouth, and they can still speak. They can, so that, I don't know, that makes them creepier to me.